Let's get more on this now with Naeem Aslam. He's Chief Investment Officer at Zaye Capital Markets. Welcome back to the programme, Naeem. Now we're seeing markets across Asia climbing around 5%, with Kospi up nearly 7%. Is that just a relief rally following the ceasefire news?
Thanks for having me as always. I think certainly that is the verdict on the market, and among investors, the sentiment is very much positive. Now, I do wanted to caveat that going into the US stock market ahead of this particular deadline, we didn't really see massive sell-off. Given the fact that what Trump was really saying on his Twitter. So what I'm trying to say is that a lot of investors are very much accustomed to Trump's playbook, the traditional playbook, which he brings out, and then at the end, he just eventually folds in. Now, the reason that we have seen a massive momentum in the Asian market is primarily because if you look at the Saudi oil prices, which they introduced only last week for Asian markets, that had the largest increase. And the fact that now we have this temporary ceasefire investors are cheering the fact that, okay, somehow some of those inflation concerns have eased off with the hope of a permanent ceasefire being in place. But let's not fool ourselves. This is going to be the third time US, Israel, and Iran are being involved in this particular war under with the same stance, trying to neutralize or trying to come up with their own narrative to attack Iran. So don't be surprised or don't be get caught on the wrong side of the trade if the ceasefire doesn't hold, or if after a few months we are coming to the same situation and looking at it.
Now, with the Strait of Hormuz now open, albeit temporarily, how quickly can we expect the supply of industrial metals to normalise, as we've seen their prices also rallying?
Yeah, this is an interesting question because we've seen the Gulf factories over in the area are very much being attacked as a result of this one. So we don't really expect the supply chain to resume or to feel a relief rally that quickly.
And gold is back up as the dollar fell below that 99 mark. Are we seeing a renewed shift in the market for traditional safe havens once again?
Gold is really an interesting one, after forming the bottom when this particular war was triggered and in around that 4,000 mark. We did mention that, yes, the bottom is very much in place, but everything is so sensitive and it is just a matter of one tweet that everything will reshift. So now we are seeing this particular shift because this is a very important week for gold prices, because we have not only the ceasefire that has happened, but we also have the Fed minutes, we also have the US important economic data. And both of are indicating that the Federal Reserve will not be able to cut interest rate any further, while the odds of hiking interest rates are strongly on the table. So I think because of that reason, we are consistently seeing upward momentum when it comes to gold prices. And the fact that the part of this particular deal relies on keeping peace in Lebanon from Israel's side, that is the most sensitive part, where investors know that this is an opportunity. And finally and lastly, the whole war has given a huge tailwind to the de-dollarization trade, meaning all that petrodollar concept, like, it is pretty much out of the window, because now this particular event has given a birth that you can buy oil with the Chinese yuan. And that means that oil demand, which China has been buying for the 14 straight months, is very, very strong.
And at the end of the day, this is just a 2-week ceasefire agreement for the time being. So how are traders positioning against the risk of the strait closing once again?
Look, the Strait has a huge pipeline. This is a massive bottleneck, and it is going to take a long time for a situation to ease off, provided that the ceasefire remains intact.
Right, and markets across the Gulf have surged also, as we've seen in Asia. What does that mean about investor sentiment going back into the region?
The Gulf has acted very responsibly throughout this particular period in terms of calming the market, in terms of providing the liquidity for the market, in terms of providing the assistance for the several different sectors. And I think the whole world has been looking at it, especially from the perspective of the UAE and Dubai. So I think sentiment would take time because the momentum got disturbed massively, but it will revive.
Interesting analysis there. Naeem Aslam from Zaye Capital Markets, thank you very much for your analysis.
Thank you for having me.